Welcome back to another episode of the Tim Boxeo Show. As always, we begin with a disclaimer. And that is that this is not your average boxing podcast. If you are looking to hear about Gervonta Davis and Vasily Lomachenko's spectacular wins over the weekend, this is not the podcast for you. While, Tim, you may have enjoyed those fights, we don't talk about that here. We talk more about the world of club boxing. We talk about the guys who are 1-0, 2-0, or maybe they're 6-45. And we're going to give you a taste of that this week with our guests. But if you're not here for that, that's okay. Go check out another boxing podcast. There's plenty to listen to. Tim will give you recommendations. So let me introduce the man of the hour, at least for the next hour. That is the TC Boxing Hall of Famer, the most reliable source for club boxing results in the world. He is really the one-man PR firm for Big Punch, the mecca of boxing. Tim, how's it going?
It's going great, Angelo. I love to hear you say that Big Punch is the mecca of boxing. This is great.
We're at the point where it just is, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I'm doing great. You're doing all right?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I have got a very eventful week ahead of me. I got podcasts that I'm doing, including this one right here. And yeah, I am curious to hear what is going to be our story of the week, because I saw you talking today in the chat about bare knuckle. And I was like, surely that's not going to be too much on the agenda today. Although I am very aware of your fondness for the bare knuckle.
No, we'll stay on brand with boxing. But I guess unless we just hear from a bunch of people that they want to hear about bare knuckle on this show, but I'll just make cursory mentions of bare knuckle, I think, is probably the best way to handle that. So no, we're not going to talk about big
I
what? Almost mixed Big Punch and bare knuckle together, and I don't know what the hell that was. We are not going to talk about bare knuckle as the story of the week, but in a way, we're going to talk about Big Punch as the story of the week, because there was a show on Sunday in Moscow, Russia, from a Russian promoter called Shamo Boxing Promotions. And I was joking with my friend.
It's kind of a fun name.
Shamo?
Shamo, like a sham?
Yeah, right. It's very strange. I wonder if there's any translation in Russian that makes any sense out of that. I have no idea. Sham seems to fit the bill for what we're going to talk about. That's probably pretty harsh. I shouldn't say that, because I really see this as like a two-part discussion, and I'll tell you more about that here in a second. So first of all, I was joking. What I was about to say was I was joking with my friend Corey Erdman, who calls lots of shows all around the world for all kinds of different platforms. And lately he's been working with Salida Promotions, who does somewhat of a co-promotion actually with the Russian boxing promoters, Shamo Boxing. And Corey and I were joking that, well, half joking, half truth, that Shamo Boxing Promotions is legitimately the Big Punch arena of Russia, perhaps maybe just without some of the spectacular KOs. It tends to have a little bit more of the 4 to 6 round decisions after decisions, but there's a couple of interesting wrinkles to that too. I want to share with you. So if as a listener, you have never experienced a card from Shamo Boxing Promotions, let me give you some background in history and some interesting nuggets. And like I said, there was a card on Sunday in Moscow, and their shows usually run about anywhere from 4 to 6 to 7 hours. This is a very akin to Big Punch, where we're going to have 15, 16, 17 fights on a card, and we're just going to roll all day long. And unlike the big shows like PBC, DAZN, ESPN, we're not going to have long intermissions. I mean, if you think about someone like myself tweeting in between fights, I have a hard time getting the result copied and pasted from BoxRec into Twitter, hitting tweet, and the next fighters are in the ring, and I'm trying to grab a screenshot of what they look like on the instructions with the referee. So that's the kind of pace we're running at a Shamo Boxing show. So here's some background. They were established in 2014, which seems like a forever ago when you say that, when I hear that coming out of my mouth, but only about 7 years. There's a promoter that runs most of their shows. His name is Shamir Petrosian. I've got his BoxRec link here. You can see Shamir. Over the time period since 2014, the interesting thing that Shamo does is they number all of their events. So their events have been up to last Sunday, numbered to 62. So they've had 62 promotions. There is a Russian social media site. It's somewhat akin to Facebook that I would call, I guess I would describe it as kind of a Facebook. It's called VK. A lot of listeners maybe have been on it or seen it. And from Shamo's profile on VK, on this Russian social media site, I'm going to read to you what it says. It's just a quick paragraph. And hopefully the translation came through okay, because obviously it's in Russian. But it says that Shamo Boxing is the promotion company, at the same time also a professional boxing school in Russia, which trains professional boxers and organizes the largest professional title and rating boxing programs. So what foreign countries, meaning non-US countries, usually mean when they say that is that they're, turning fighters pro. When they say title and rating, they're turning fighters pro, and then those fighters are continuing to fight on their cards to the point where they're being ranked by the governing bodies, the ranking bodies of boxing. And then they go on to say that the goal of the project is to promote professional boxers and win them championship titles, as well as organize fights with the participation of school boxers in Russia with current professional renowned world boxers. So meaning, again, they're going to home grow some talent, and they're either going to bring world championship fights into Russia, or they're going to export their guys on the road to world championship fights. Now, just below that, if you're following along on the show notes, I've got a picture of Shamir, and then in the next link, I have a picture of the outside of the Shamo Boxing Gym and School. And regardless of what you think the outside of the Shamo Boxing Gym and School might look like, I guarantee you it's probably not going to look like what you think when you click on the image that I have in the show notes. It literally looks like it's carved out of a Russian forest. And to take things even a step further and make the story even a little juicier, just back not too long ago here, just in 2019, they held an outdoor event at the Shamo Boxing Gym and School and broadcast it live on YouTube, which they've been really consistent in doing since they became a promotional outfit in 2014, is live streaming their events. And some of the scenes in the video, it's only about 7 minutes long, the fight that I have linked in the show notes. Some of the scenes in it of just what the background looks like of the Shamo Boxing Gym is pretty fantastic. And I think if you're a fan of Big Punch Arena and our discussions about Big Punch Arena in Tijuana, you'll immediately gain affinity and love for Shamo Boxing after looking at the image as well as the video. So interestingly enough, and doing some research back to 2014, there have been 2 or 3 fighters that have been kind of the cornerstones of Shamo Boxing since 2014. And at least one of them you'll be very, very familiar with. So over the last 4 or 5 years, a regular on Shamo Boxing shows that has since, of course, graduated is light heavyweight Maxim Vlasov, who we've just seen here just recently on a hell of a fight on ESPN, actually.
To Joe
against,
Smith Jr.,
Joe Smith Jr. in April, I think. Ish. April, May. Something. Yep, April. And one tough fighter. Really, really good light heavyweight. And some of the more boxing nerds amongst us might recognize the other fighter that's been a stalwart of the promotion, super bantamweight Arnold III. if that name rings a bell. He has grown up on these shows and has fought outside of Russia as well. And then the third and last one, which is equally as interesting, but for some different reasons, is 26-year-old Firuza Sharapova, female. She's actually fighting in Kazakhstan here coming up on Tuesday of next week. But she's interesting because she has a very massive following in Kazakhstan. I think maybe it was Angela, I'm forgetting, it might have been the teaser episode, our very first episode, we mentioned Firuza Sharapova. And
Yep.
outside of Triple G, I actually forgot. I think you were the one that reminded me, well, what about Triple G? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So after Triple G, she's probably the most famous athlete in Kazakhstan. She has a huge following on her social media platforms. She just finished the Kazakhstan version of Dancing with the Stars. And I actually found an article from The Sun in the UK that went on to say that in 2017, she was named Kazakhstan's sexiest athlete, for whatever that's worth. But in May of that same year, she started working with Shambo Boxing and was kind of a cornerstone of the promotion for 3 to 5 fights and still intersects with them on a regular basis. So those are the athletes that have kind of built the groundwork of the Shambo Boxing promotions. There's been plenty of other notable fighters that have headlined Shambo Boxing shows that you'll probably recognize the names. Hassan Dusmatov, which is, I think, a pretty famous
He's an Olympic gold medalist, I think.
Say what?
I think he was an Olympic gold medalist.
I think you're right. I think he was.
I think he was for sure my favorite that I watched in the 2016 Olympics. Does that mean he's good? Well, I don't know, but I know I liked watching him.
Look at you, 12-pound fighter, and he was one of your favorites.
So
look at you.
For those of you who listen to my other podcasts, I think I get lumped in unfairly sometimes with other people that come on the podcast, but I watch all boxing. Well, I don't watch at the level of you, Tim. Like, let me show some respect here. But in terms of weight classes and all that stuff, it is my duty to know all of these things. So I'm just saying.
No, I gotcha. All right. Hassan Dusmatov.
Yeah.
He's a good one. He's fun to watch.
Just little.
He's just tiny, but he goes for the kill. That's always fun with the little guys. Alexei Papin, headliner show here not too long ago. Pretty good fighter. And an ancient version of Alexander Ustinov. Just headlined a show, I want to say 2020, 2019, somewhere late 2019. So there's been, along with the stalwarts of the promotion, there's been other pretty prominent names that have come through as well. There's one little ancillary nugget that I want to mention that's kind of fun part of the story too, is there's a Russian referee that I first noticed myself anyway, because of a fantastic head of hair that he has. Looked like he was probably, 50 years old or so, but he just had a great head of hair. Like, who is this madman? And then someone on my timeline on Twitter said, hey, that's Andrei Kurnyavka. And I said, okay, I don't know who Andrei Kurnyavka is. So I looked up his box rec. Turned out to be a pretty prominent Russian, I almost said Olympian, Russian amateur as a light heavyweight, cruiserweight, and almost qualified, should have qualified for the Olympics, but did not qualify for the Olympics. Selected for the Russian team, I guess is the better way to say it. Because I think at that time it was a little more than just straight up qualifying, if you know what I'm saying. And he was soured because of that, left boxing. I've got an image of him refereeing from Sunday's show in Moscow that you'll enjoy, I think, when you click on it in the show notes. And I've got his box recs there too. So he did Sunday's show, at least a number of the fights in Moscow, but he does a lot of shows throughout Russia. So this guy is a 1989 world champion in 75 kilograms, finalist in the 1991 World Championships, and a medalist of the 89 European Championships, and then the winner of the 1990 Goodwill Games at 81 kilograms. So this guy, it was a damn good fighter.
He also looks like Jack
Decorated.
Black if like they needed a Russian body double.
He looks like, yeah, I mean, he looks like a little bit of a plumped up version of, the '60s version of the Monkees musical band. I probably shouldn't have went there. No one on the podcast is going to understand that. But yeah, I mean, he looks like a Russian. I think he just looks like a badass dude. And one last nugget I wanted to share about him before I tell you about a couple of the interesting things that happened on Sunday was that there was a bullet on his Wikipedia, and I went and found the interview that it referenced that asked him this question, and he answered it. Was that, as an interesting side note, when he left boxing in the early '90s, he entered only what he would call business and politics, and he didn't go on to define it any further than that. But during that time, there were two attempts on his life. One that he described as very serious, and the second one he described as no big deal. So I thought that was just fitting to the man that you'll see in the image when you click on it. It was as good as it gets, and just furthers the story of Shambo boxing, club boxing in Russia. It was really good. So I was excited for Sunday's event, and only because it was a big long show, and I was just really interested for it. But then at the top of the card, I was also interested because 30-year-old bantamweight Nikolai Potapov was the main event. Most listeners to the show will probably know that name. He's ranked by three of the four ranking bodies in the world as a bantamweight, and he went to 23-2-1 with an 8-round decision victory over a Tanzanian former minimum weight in the not so distant past named Oscar Richard, who fell to 7-4-1, and the fight went 8 rounds. Now, Potapov in his last 3 fights has gone basically 0-2-1, and those last, I shouldn't say his last 3 fights, I should say his last 3 times stepping up, he's gone 0-2-1, and those step up fights have come outside of Russia. And then he would go back to Russia, win a fight or two, and then step up again. He fought on Showbox a few times back before this 0-2-1 run that he's on now, or that he was on in his step up fights, and he's feasted again at home a couple times on these Shambo boxing shows. So Potapov is ready for another step up, and after beating the Tanzanian former minimum weight, the logical thing to do, of course, is exactly what Potapov did, which is after the fight, on the post-fight interview in the ring, he called out Noya Inoue, which
Yeah,
I
I
guess
think
is
that's
the
a great
logical.
idea.
I guess I mean that's what you do, right?
If you're looking to retire, he's 30 years old at bantamweight. I think potentially the clock is ticking, and that may be not so bad. You cash out, but obviously Potapov. I remember watching him on Showbox. Yeah, it's pretty predictable the way an in-away fight would go for him.
Yeah, I might cash out on life altogether, much less just boxing. So before we move on to the fight of the week, here's 3 fun nuggets that also happened on the show, okay, that I wanted to share. And it will further the legend of Shambo boxing to the point where we will want to at least mention the Shambo card going forward. First of all, I have a little video montage that I put together for you in the show notes, because we had 4 of the first 5 fights had stoppages on the deep undercard that were really essentially just discussed from the referees that the bouts were even made. I don't know how else to describe it. It just overall, on the my overall takeaway of the show and the overall enhancement of my enjoyment to the show, it's just as entertaining as it is maddening to watch these stoppages. So the referee essentially recognizes within seconds of the first bell ringing that we have a mismatch, or knew before the fight even started. And as soon as a few heavy shots land, he just waves his arms and steps in and calls it a day. And both fighters go to their corner, and and we move on to the next bout. And it's pretty typical of Russian referees and those types of things and those types of shows, and you see that a lot in Asia as well. But I think you'll enjoy that video montage if you have the ability to click on it. And for me, it just enhances my viewing pleasure of Shamo boxing shows. We had at least one fighter in biker shorts, which is not that out of the ordinary. Also, at least one fighter in just a pair of sneakers. That happens pretty frequently. And then the last one, and this is something that I have a link to as well, that Corey, while he was broadcasting this remotely, tweeted out himself, was that we also had one fighter using a Sprite bottle, plastic bottle, with a flip top from a water bottle affixed to the top as his in-between rounds water bottle.
How do you know
And I
there's
don't
water
think
in there?
that's anything. We don't.
Maybe he wanted the
Sprite.
crisp, refreshing taste of Sprite between rounds.
Could be, and I don't think the Shamo boxing cards would be ones to object.
To
I don't know.
regulate? Something tells me,
Who
based
knows?
off of what you've said thus far, that, yeah, nobody was checking if that was Sprite, water, vodka. Who knows?
The guys are doing what they can. But listen, I mentioned at the top, and I'll just close with this. I really see this as a two-parter. I'd like to come back to Shamo boxing here in a couple of weeks ahead, because it'd be great to get, if not Shamir Petrosian, I don't know if Mr. Petrosian speaks English or not, or even better yet, Dmitry Salita, who co-promotes these shows from the United States with Shamo boxing in Russia, come on and share some details about what the plans are for Shamo boxing and that co-promotion. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, Dmitry Salita, that'd be an interesting guy.
Very much.
All right, what were the fights of the week? I know what probably everyone would say, but what about on your level?
Well, let me just mention, I think it would be a bit off-brand of our show to talk about a fight that was broadcast on Fox television network by the PBC, the Sunday night evening show in the Armory in Minneapolis. I think every boxing podcast this week is going to be talking about that, but we at least have to have a tip of the cap to that show, because top to bottom, I mean, I couldn't get to bed Sunday night. That show was so exciting, from the cruiserweight fight that easily could be fight of the year contender. I think it is fight of the year contender, to the knockout in the main event with David Morrell. I mean, that was just a fantastic show, top to bottom. And if you missed any of it, we've got some links in the show notes for you to see.
Yeah, the Apochi and Glanton fight was ridiculous in terms of what those two guys brought to the ring on Sunday night, and they left everything in the ring. I just can't get over laughing at Apochi getting his head snapped back against the ropes, and his first response wasn't even to clinch, it was to start talking to the referee. As his head was coming back from, like, I don't know, bending at a 45-degree angle backwards.
Oh, it was one of those eyes roll back in your head moments that scare the hell out of us as fight fans. And then, to your point, within 3 seconds, he's having a conversation with the referee telling him he's ready to fight. I'd never seen anything like it in my life.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was a good show. It really delivered on a lot of levels, with, like, you had upsets, you had just the absolute fight of the year contender, and then you had somebody get sent to hell, which we always love to see here on this podcast.
Yeah, amen. I if it wasn't on Fox, honestly, if that show were on like FS1 or something, I would have tiptoed across the line. I think we should talk about it, but let's move on. All right, so you're gonna love the first story to discuss on fights of the weekend, because we're going to talk about someone we just talked about 2 episodes ago, if I'm not mistaken. 30-year-old Brett The Threat Fidoe improves to 15-65-5 with the TKO3 victory over former WBO European Super Bantamweight world titleist, or regional titleist, however you want to say that, European version.
Yeah, I don't think that's a world title.
Yeah.
I think it's just European title.
Yeah, title. It's a title. Tyrone McCullough, who was trying to bounce back after his first career defeat. Tyrone falls to 14-2 when he's stopped legitimately by Brett Fidoe, who really did a number on him. And right off the top, it pains me to do, but I got to do it. Right off the top, I need to come. I need to get correct because on episode 8 of our show, as I mentioned, we were highlighting Fido breaking his 17 fight losing streak because he took a 4-round decision about 3 weeks ago over a debutant named John Patrick Harker. And I thought personally that Harker did enough to win that fight. And I stand by that. But I also made a comment that when you have 65 losses, you probably can't be referred to as the threat any longer, right? Like you're not a threat. But
That's what you thought.
man, I might eat my words, man, because Fido takes Harker out, and then 2 weeks later comes back and a legitimately, British level fighter in Tyrone McCullough, gets him out of there within 3 rounds, and now Fido's on a 2-fight winning streak. So I think the threat is the perfect nickname for this guy. And a little spoiler alert, you might have seen on social media here on my social media, really soon here in the next couple of weeks, I'll start a foundation of a Patreon subscription model community. And Brett Fidoe is going to join us for an interview next week that normally, as a standalone interview, I'd start to begin to put in the Patreon community. But we'll launch that one out free to everyone here as we get started and continue to build that community. So now back into the fight itself. Fido, I think, was probably down the first 2 rounds against McCullough. McCullough was kind of moving around the ring. He's a pretty decent British level fighter, pretty talented guy. And then early in the 3rd round, Fido hit him with a left hook that really got his attention. And what I loved about it was, and this is why you call him the threat, right? Fido, with 65 losses, there was blood in the water, and he spent the next about 90 seconds just pressuring McCullough and trying to get him out of there. And damn as hell if he didn't do the job, because he did finish the job right towards the end of the 3rd round, and he was rightfully elated when he stopped McCullough. The referee jumped in and saved McCullough because he was in bad shape. And Fido was pumped up. This guy was celebrating big time. It was really great to see. So shout out to our guy, Brett Fidoe. Both a shout out and an apology all in one story of one of the 2 fights of the weekend from this past weekend. That was fantastic for listeners and club show fans alike.
So he's out here running the Barry Horowitz gimmick.
What is that? Tell me more.
Oh, so there was like a jobber wrestler who he was like the guy that they brought in to like enhance talent. He just always lost all the time. And then they started this gimmick where he won. He got this upset win. And then he became like a new guy, basically.
And then he flipped his persona from that point forward.
I don't know if he completely flipped it, but they got a run out of him as a guy who got the upset win.
Well, interesting thing we'll talk about with Fido here next week is he went on a 2-fight winning streak like this about 3-4 years ago, and actually got himself in position to fight for a British title with a very underwater record, even 2-3 years ago back at that time. And the guy can fight, man. So it'll be interesting to discuss further about if you're a manager of someone like McCullough, is that really the fight you want to make? And then anyway, there's a lot of storylines there. It'll be fun.
All right, what else we got?
All right, so I got one more, and if it's okay with you, Angelo, let's combine what we would call like graduation time, or who we think is an up and coming prospect, with this fight of the weekend, because I think from what I saw across the board, at least what I watched, as far as up and coming young fighters, this guy completely fits the bill, and his fight itself was really entertaining just watching his skill set. So I think we'll combine those 2 parts and talk about it now. So on Friday, Gary Cully, Ireland's Gary Cully. We got to say Ireland's Gary Cully whenever it's an Irish fighter. I think there's a rule somewhere about that. So it's Ireland's Gary Cully moves to 13-0 with 17 knockouts.
7 knockouts.
What
Unless
did I
you're
say?
giving
17?
him credit for knockouts that were not scored in a boxing ring, which is some real Saul Farah stuff, you know?
It is, or big punch. It fits. It fits with the show. But okay, thanks for that. So 7 knockouts. Sorry. He got the RTD3 over Romania's 39-year-old Viorel Simeon, who falls to 22-6. And this was Friday in Bolton, United Kingdom, streamed live on YouTube. It was an MTK show. And I've got Gary's box rec here. There's a link to highlights of his fight, 3-rounder. There's a short interview of Gary after the fight too. That's fun to watch. By all accounts, looks like just a pretty good kid overall. Very very well spoken kid, and I was just really impressed. So he's a lightweight, but he's also 6'2", and he's only 25 years old. So he looks freakish in the ring, and he especially looked freakish against Simeon because Simeon's kind of short and stocky. But we mentioned him a couple of shows ago too. And when I saw this fight on paper, I thought this would be interesting. And I thought it might go the distance and we'd find out a little bit more about Gary Cully, because although Simeon's 39, we talked about him probably a month or so ago, fighting in Spain versus Samuel Molina, who's a similar prospect on the Spain side of things. I think Molina's only about 22. And sure, Simeon's probably on 1 or 2 fights past it, so to speak. But he has held a regional world title, like a continental European type title. Was a decent fighter back in his time, but might be a little bit past it at this point. Cully's on a hell of a streak, man. He blasted out someone named Joe Fitzpatrick, at the time was 10-0 2 fights ago. I think that was back in February. And then in between, or after that, I should say, fought someone named Craig Woodruff. Actually, Cully went down in this fight in the 5th round, but went on to take an 8-round decision. And then comes back out here against Simeon on Friday. And what you saw was a combination of things that, as fight fans, I don't think you really see go together really well. And the one of them I mentioned already is that, not really well, but that often, I should say. One is his height and weight. 6'2", 135 pounds. It'll be interesting to see how long he can stay at 135. I didn't dig too deep about his comments. I'm sure he's asked about it all the time, but I'm not sure. But he's long too. I mean, you can see some taller guys that don't necessarily look long, if that makes any sense. But Cully's wingspan looks huge. And another thing that I thought was really interesting about him as a prospect, and tell me if I'm not making any sense here, but he boxes off the back foot, but he's aggressive. So when he steps forward and steps on the gas, he shows aggression frequently, and then at the right times. And when he steps forward, he comes off the back foot, he still maintains his distance. Like, he's got the distance thing figured out for his size, even when he's putting pressure on fighters. Almost the opposite of maybe someone like Sebastian Fundura, right? Cully doesn't smother his own shots. He's keeping a distance, but being aggressive at the same time, which is a really fun thing to see, because you can tell the kid really understands his way around the ring really well. And then on top of it, I guess the last nugget I'd share about him, at least from what I saw, is just really active. Throws a ton of punches, head, body, using both hands, upstairs, downstairs. And to see a big, long guy like that be aggressive and just throwing from everywhere, it just makes a really, really fun viewing experience. And like I've said on the show before, I'm not necessarily earmarking guys to say, this guy's going to be the next undisputed world champion. I just know this is someone I want to watch again, because I thought he was talented and very entertaining. Gary Cully absolutely fits that mold.
Yeah, I've heard a bit about Cully. I've watched him fight. I think with Irish boxing in the state that it's in right now, you're looking for anybody to be that guy. I don't know who's carrying the the flag for Ireland right now, but Gary looks like he's on a short list of dudes who could potentially be that guy. I don't think it's going
Yeah,
to
you talked to.
be. Oh, go on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think it's going to be the guy we're about to talk about next.
Okay. Really? All right.
Also,
So
because I don't think he's from Ireland now that I look at this.
no, he's not. So just really quick, and we can move on to low lights. I was just going to give a quick shout out to 25-year-old Naeem Ali, who fell to 269-1 this weekend on the opposite show in the UK. This was from Sheffield on Friday. He lost a 6-round decision to someone named Dom Hunt, who moved to 6-0 in their light middleweight bout. This was Ali's 69th defeat without a KO. So God bless Naeem Ali. We mentioned him last week, and I'm going to keep talking about him because my guy is 25 with 69 losses and never been stopped. So I love it.
So, just a little interesting tidbit about this guy. His last 10 opponents have a combined 1 loss. He's like, do not put me in there with somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
This guy is crazy.
He's a real pro, man. And I'll tell you, let me add real quick. Dom Hunt was not in that 6-round fight to tap dance with Naeem Ali. I think I messaged one of my friends on either Discord or Twitter and said, Hunt's trying to stop Ali here in the first 2 rounds. I mean, he was coming after him. And the kid survived, and on he goes to next week.
If you look at like somebody like Dom Hunt's box rec, it's like a rabbit hole of guys that have similar records to Ali. There's a guy named MJ Hall who's 2-61.
Yep.
He's had 2 wins since he's lost to Dom Hunt. That's so wild. I really think they got to do a tournament with all these guys.
Love the UK journeyman.
All right. So what, is there anything this week that we need to know about? And any progress reports you want to send out? Teachers' remarks sort of thing?
So I have one thing to mention that was, I don't have a video clip of it, but I'll just tell you about it. It was in Weston, Florida on a pay-per-view I purchased over the weekend. Light heavyweight Blake Davis, and he has his own promotion called Bad Promotions, Blake Davis. And this is the card he fought on. He moves to 7-0 with 4 KOs, which can only be described as a soft TKO1 victory over late replacement Ulysses Jimenez, who falls to 24-28-1 at 59 seconds of the opening round, sadly. After about 30 seconds of just kind of moving around the ring and feeling each other, Davis. And Jimenez got hit pretty good, but definitely helped himself to the canvas. And then put on a really poor demonstration of trying to use the ropes, Rocky-like, to get himself back up to his feet and then falling down in the process. And it just looked bad. And to Davis's credit, he was pissed. Davis essentially got up into his face kind of from center ring and said, let's go, let's fight. What's going on? Shaking his hands at him and just overall disgusted. Miraculously, within about 60 seconds, Jimenez was perfectly fine. Not sure really how that goes. But to Davis's credit, like I said, he wanted to fight, and Jimenez was a really late replacement. I'm told from what I dug up, like fight week replacement. But that was less than stellar from this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's actually worse when your opponent is not in on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Davis didn't just like go back, celebrate with his fans. He was pissed.
Yeah, I think that's the guy that's actually trying to get work and make something of himself. And when you go in there and you're not committed to being in the fight and you take the first opportunity out, yeah, I can see how a guy would not be happy, even though he's going to get a KO1. I don't think he'd be happy.
No.
All right, now I saw you posting about this. A fighter that we all should be familiar with. He's been around for a long time. He's got more knockdowns by himself, of him being knocked to the canvas, than he does actual knockouts and fights, I think. Can you
Yep.
tell everybody who we are talking about?
Well, and I was really early on in our quick description here. I was going to ask you what you remember most about this person, but
Getting
I think you
dropped.
pretty much just said it.
But like, I've always really liked Hassan N'Dam because he's the kind of guy that understands the value of taking one fewer punches than one more punch. And he's suffered a lot of knockdowns in his career, but he's also not been stopped very many times. And I think it's a function of the fact that that guy's never he tries not to allow himself to get hurt to the point where a fight would need to be stopped.
Okay, that's a very good analysis.
What were you going to say?
Well, for the first cool thing about this discussion is this fight isn't on BoxRec, so I always get excited when that happens. So the other thing, let me take your point you made at the start just a step further, because Hassan N'Dam's record is 37-5. I was shocked to find out he's only been stopped twice in those 5 defeats, but he was knocked down more times in one fight than he has losses, because he started his career in 27-0 as 27-0 before he fought Peter Quillen on Showtime back in 2012. He lost a unanimous decision in that fight, but he was on the canvas 6 times against Quillen.
He also might have won 6 rounds too.
It was close, right? Close fight.
Yeah.
So and that wasn't an isolated incident. All through his career, and Dom has been on the canvas a ton. I mean, he went on a bit of a streak where he put a couple of wins together, if I'm not mistaken. And in 2015, he fought David Lemieux in a bout. He was on the canvas 4 times 4. Like I said, I was just shocked to find out he's only been knocked out twice. He's got some big wins. I guess I didn't realize he's got a few statement wins in his resume too. He's mostly fought between 154 and about 168 or so now that he's getting older. But not forever ago, he went to Japan in 2017 and took a split decision 12 win over current world champion Ryota Murata, of Olympic
I think
gold
you
medalist.
got WBA middleweight title from that too.
Yep. So world champion. And leading up to that fight against Quillen, he's got a bunch of decent wins. I mean, Max Bursick in the late 2000, like 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, was a very, very serviceable middleweightish fighter. Giovanni Lorenzo he beat. Omar Weiss he beat. And the one I was probably most impressed with, and I'm going to butcher his name, but is Aventil Kurdzidze, who was a Georgian. But
Also
that guy
prison.
could punch a hole in like a steel crate. I mean, that guy is a massive puncher, just a maniac. And yes, and Dom beat him too. So a pretty damn good fighter. Anyway, he's back on the schedule on a French sub-site called Fight Nation from Monte Carlo on Friday afternoon U.S. time. It's the main event.
N'Dam's was a very serviceable fighter for like top level guys. Like, he was probably never gonna beat a top guy, but at the same time, he was always gonna at least give him a competitive fight. What he was able to do in the ring was like certainly the type of guy that you need. He like just a great measuring stick. He ain't that no more though. That much is very clear.
Right. No, those days are long gone.
All right. What else is coming up next?
Yeah, so that kind of bled into what we have coming up next for the weekend. So probably the fight of the weekend, at least through my eyes and what I'm most excited about, is a fight in France as 20 and I chuckle to myself even when I say that, because I have a love-hate relationship with French boxing. No disrespect to any French listeners that we might have, but Angelo, I know we've traded messages and joked about this, but I hate to ever paint with a broad brush, but when the facts support it, it's kind of hard not to for it to be true. I mean, the facts back it up. Is that if you look at any random French show on BoxRec, it's going to be difficult to find a French fighter with a decent KO ratio. I don't know what it is about how they teach the sport in France, but you just don't think about French boxers as being knockout artists, right? Have good KOs. Well, that tends to get me a little upset when I watch French club boxing, but we've got someone who breaks that mold in France headlining a show this weekend. It's 21-year-old French super prospect Milan Prat, who is now 10-1 with 7 stoppages. He takes a big step up. Pratt's been mainly feasting on real low-level French opposition as he worked up to 7-0 because the plan for him was to go to the Olympics. And I couldn't really find any good details on why he didn't make that jump here this summer. Instead, decided to keep fighting on, and he's been very, very busy in 2021. But he fights former French champion, 33-year-old Faoud El Masadi, who doesn't have a great record, 17-13-1, but is a pretty difficult guy to, well, let me say a different way, it'd be a very good measuring stick for Milan Prat at this point of his career. I've also liked Prat because he does some great ring entrances. I think in his last fight, he was either dressed up like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Chucky. I'm forgetting which it was. So he has fun when he comes to the ring. I've seen all of his pro bouts, and like I said, been very impressed with him. He's got a really good skill set. It passes the eye test, but the level of opposition has been pretty low. His only loss on his record was just a super controversial DQ he took when he was blowing out a French journeyman and then hit him in the back of the head in the second round and was disqualified. Very, very aggressive fighter, goes in for the kill. I like Pratt a lot. We'll see what he can do against Al Masadi, and it'll be on Fight Nation as well on Saturday, the same as N'Dam, and it's a monthly sub site. I want to say it costs €6 or €7. So looking forward to that.
Okay. I something I'm thinking of. I don't know if we'll do it on this podcast or I do it on mine. Just maybe a show about all the pros that will be going to the Olympics or potentially like could have but weren't, may not be, like Milan. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think
Just
so too. One of those that was supposed to fight this weekend, Yoel Finau, the Venezuelan. I think we
oh
mentioned him on the last show.
yeah.
And he's only 2-0, and I don't know why he didn't end up the Olympics. He was in qualifiers. Maybe he didn't qualify,
Could
but
be.
he was supposed to fight this past weekend, and it was an outdoor show in Colombia, and it actually got canceled about halfway through it because of inclement weather, and he didn't fight.
Imagine
But
getting
yeah,
your imagine your opportunity to make the Olympics gets blown because of weather, because of some rain.
yeah, that'd be bad. Um, Poor planning on the Colombians' part. That wasn't what happened in this particular case, but yeah, that would be bad. All right, I've got one more for you.
Uh-huh.
And then just a couple of quick mentions before we get to our guest. And this is our guest, actually. I'm looking forward on Saturday to returning my viewing priorities to the Mecca of boxing, Big Punch Arena, of course, as 18-year-old now, just turned 18 about a month ago. 6'3" light middleweight Sam Arnold returns to Big Punch Arena. Sam's 2-0. He turned pro at the age of 17 from St. Louis and is a 7-time amateur national champion and fought at Big Punch in a 4-rounder, took a 4-round decision, went home literally just a couple of days after his 18th birthday and fought in front of his home crowd in St. Louis and dispatched of a fella within 20 seconds. And Sam will be back in action Saturday at Big Punch. So I'm looking forward to seeing the continued progression of Sam here as a pro and excited to talk to him here in just a couple of minutes. So that'll be fun. And then, Angel, let me mention 3 or 4 more quick little nuggets. Nothing I'm going to go too deep in, but because there's some interesting things just sprinkled on the calendar on the club scene. Really late Friday, early Saturday morning in the Philippines, 32-year-old super featherweight Charlie Suarez, 6-0, 5 knockouts, will be in action. Also, really late Friday, like 1 a.m. U.S. Eastern Daylight Time, they're dueling shows from South Korea on YouTube. And all this is in my calendar online on my social media bio, so you can find it all there. We're going to talk about we haven't talked. I can't believe we made it through 10 episodes and haven't talked about South Korea. It's usually rock'em sock'em robots in South Korea. It's just been a little bit of a dry spell.
Like Ji-Hoon Kim?
Here. Rest in peace. Yeah.
Oh, really? We lost Ji-Hoon Kim?
No, we did not.
I was going to say, man, that sucks.
No, we did not.
I just look up on this.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God, Ji-Hoon Kim is only 33.
Sorry, that was I didn't mean it in a literal sense.
I mean, maybe his career, which has been over since 2013 for sure. Oh my God. Remember last week when I could not remember the name and I just kept struggling?
Uh-huh.
Ji-Hoon Kim fought him. It was Yakubu Amadou.
Oh, okay. I would have never landed there.
Yeah, I was definitely not going to get there. But I'm happy to know that I've finally found out who it was that I was thinking of. It was Yakubu.
Awesome. I love it.
Ghanaian great. Anyway, back to South Korea. Wait, were you going to talk about South Korea?
No, just mentioning South Korea. We'll talk about that in the future. I've got 3 more quick things. We'll be done with the coming week. We on Sunday we should have a live streaming show coming from Serbia. Someone who I personally like is a Finnish welterweight, Ozari Metz, 13-0 with 6 knockouts. Actually traded messages on social media with Mr. Metz today, and he said he promises fireworks on Sunday. So I look forward to watching it. And then we talked about Brett Fidoe, who defeated debutant John Patrick Harker here about 3 weeks ago. Well, Harker returns to action here against another journeyman in a bantamweight bout scheduled for 4 rounds this weekend on the Fight Zone UK card. And John Patrick Harker fights Luke Fash, who is 2 wins, 60 losses, and 2 draws, and only 5 of those 60 losses by knockout. So that is spectacular. I'm going to add Luke Fash to my list of journeymen from the UK that I'm in love with. And last but not least, it's not very often that we can shout out a fighter for losing in the results section of our discussion, the way we did with Naheem Ali, and then also shout him out on the looking forward to the next fight weekend, because shout out to Naheem Ali, 269-1, back in action this weekend on Fight Zone UK as he fights Joe Garside in a welterweight bout scheduled for 4 rounds. I freaking love this guy.
All right. Well, should we get into our interview?
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, Sam, it's Tim. I've been talking to your father. Thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate you making time, man.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for having me too.
You betcha.
Sure.
I joked with your dad. I'm an old dude. My son's 15, and we use Discord to record. And I joke with your dad that we just talked about you in our preview section that you're 18. So I'm guessing you know how to use Discord.
Yes, kinda. Yeah. I just found it out. I never really heard of Discord, but since I just learned how to use it since I had it a few minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
But it didn't take long. Is the thing?
Yeah,
right.
It was pretty simple.
Because it was a process for Tim.
Yeah, it took me like a week, but Sam got it in about five seconds. Yeah.
Tim's daughter would change his name, and he would come into the chat with like these weird names with hearts on them, and we'd be like, "Tim, what is going on?"
Yeah, my 12-year-old little girl was using Discord, and I was just using her profile, and these guys were making fun of me. So whatever.
All right, Sam.
Oh man,
Tim knows all about you. I'm not too familiar with you, who you are, and your story. So can you give us like a little bit of a background? Like, when did you start boxing? What was the decision like to go pro? And is boxing run in your family? all that stuff.
Yeah. All right, so originally I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I started training for boxing young. Boxing does run in my family. My cousins and my dad and everybody else who's in my family that's a male box. So as a kid, you had to box. But I started competing in the amateurs at 10 years old. I won 7 national titles, and I just turned pro this March. But I currently live in Dallas, Texas, too. And I train a lot in Vegas too. So yeah, I turned pro this March at 17. My birthday April 29th. I had my second pro fight May 1st, and then now I'm getting ready for my third professional fight.
Do you have any like you're really young, so maybe not, but like anybody you fought in the amateurs when you were young and coming up that now we would know of today?
Not yet. No, sir. Not yet. But soon. I yeah. Who have I fought? Yeah, I fought a lot of good guys. Some of them still amateur because I'm still young. A lot of those guys still amateur. But I fought probably no one you guys know. Nah.
Well, I don't know about Tim, but certainly probably not me.
Well, I think they'll, to your point, Angelo, I think there'll be a different answer to that question here about 3-4 years when people ask Sam that same question.
Yeah, it's on the, oh
When
yeah,
these
knock
kids
that
start-
guy out in the amateurs. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's cool now, but so what was the farthest someone in your family got? Like who made it the farthest in the sport?
I got cousins and stuff who were national champions and accomplished just as much as me as amateurs. We all the same. But really me the farthest so far. I turned professional and won fights. But yeah, I got a lot of other relatives and stuff who good up and coming boxers, but anyone before me not so really made it as far as I have.
Does that mean you got a lot of cooks in the kitchen in terms of like everyone giving you advice, everyone having like a take on what you should or shouldn't be doing in the ring?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah.
What are the things you hear a lot?
Just things that I need to work on. They'll correct me on habits I might have created or just things to motivate me to go out there and put in performing my best. Really, that's all. Nothing really besides that.
All right, Tim, you can go now.
I think, yeah, I was going to say, I think, Sam, it sounds like you've got a really good perspective on it, because the challenging thing when you get a lot of feedback from anyone, much less family, right, is
Yes,
is
sir.
maybe taking it too much to heart. But feedback's a blessing, right there.
Yes,
I'm sure
it
they've
is.
got the best looking out for you.
Definitely, especially my dad.
Yeah. What is the relationship like? I guess I don't know this. Is your father your coach, or do you have a coach as well, or what's that
Yes,
relationship like?
yes. He always been my coach my whole life. At times, other coaches have helped if he wasn't available, but yeah, for the most part, my dad is my main coach. I work with probably enough. Only other coach I work with now is Coach Dewey Cooper. And the other coach who used to train my dad and other relatives, he passed away right after my last fight. But my dad is my main coach.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss. That man meant a lot to you, didn't he?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you for that too. Yeah, he did. He meant a lot for me and a lot of other fighters from St. Louis. He had over 40 national champions and one world champion. Soon to be 2.
Who was the
Amen.
first?
Me.
No, the you'd be the second, I think.
I love it. I
Who
love
Yes,
it.
sir.
who was his other world champion?
Who was the other world champion name? It was a guy from Nor Freddie Norwood. He was
Oh
Oh.
yeah,
IBF champion. And yeah.
damn right. St. Louis is a good fight town. I've seen Corey Spinks and Devin Alexander both fight in St. Louis. I've traveled to St. Louis many times to
Yeah.
see fights. So, would you? I mean, how long have you lived in Dallas now? I mean, is St. Louis always going to be home? Is what does Dallas mean to you? What's that all about?
Yeah. I lived in Dallas for years since I was young, but St. Louis always gonna be home. But Dallas is home too. And You think about Corey Spinks and Devin Alexander, they also like mentors to me. They always talk to me and give me advice, share my stuff on social media and stuff like that. So, and a lot of my fan base is big in St. Louis, but Dallas is home too. But St. Louis, it's a real big culture on boxing and has a very good boxing background. So yeah, St. Louis means a lot to me. When I fight there, I can bring hundreds of people. Yeah, I love St. Louis. That's where I started my boxing career at. But I've been living in Dallas for years, so Dallas is home too, and that's where I did most of my training and stuff coming up as an amateur.
I got you. I believe you on the fans in St. Louis because when your father, I think both you and your father posted that we were going to talk tonight here on Instagram. A whole bunch of people started sending me messages asking me how they could listen. So I believe you on your fans from St. Louis because they all started flooding my DMs. Hey, so what would if you were telling the listeners like what your strengths are as a fighter, Sam? What would that be?
I would say my experience from being in the ring with a lot of good guys at a young age, confidence, and I think I got good power. I got good ring IQ. I think those are my strengths mainly.
What's your style like? Yeah.
Huh? Can you say that again?
What's your style like? Like who are you modeling what you do in the ring off of?
I take something from everybody that I like, but I think I got a boxer puncher style. I can move a lot, but then again, I can punch hard too. So I like Tito Trinidad. He one of my favorite boxers of all time. I like a lot of guys. I like the Charlos. I like Earl Spence. Floyd Mayweather. It's just any great fighter I just learned something from. But I learned how to use my slick boxing skills from St. Louis, and then being in Dallas, sparring the tough Mexican fighters and the pressure fighters, it make you learn how to hit hard. So that's the best way I could describe my style.
You're 6'3", right?
Yes, sir.
And you're 18, so I don't know that we should write that in stone, but you're fighting at 154. Is there any talk about what happens if you keep growing?
Yeah, I'm gonna just move up and wait and win at those weights if I got to.
How do you feel making weight right now?
I feel fine. I work hard and I eat clean, so I just make weight. I gotta make weight. It's a part of boxing. I've been doing it since I was a kid, so I'm used to making weight.
And how do you manage your diet like when you're not in training camp?
I still eat clean because I like to fight a lot, so I always eat clean. I never go away from dieting, but if I do have a day or two or a weekend where I eat bad, I'm always in the gym, so I don't let myself get out of shape or anything like that.
Can you tell us? This is changing gears a little bit, but do you have a relationship with Eye of the Tiger management?
Not anymore, but we did at a certain point.
What was the relationship?
It was a management thing. We just doing another thing right now. We're doing our own thing right now, but I don't really want to talk too much about that or business, in the public. But yeah, we just didn't it just didn't work out. We're just doing other things and looking at other options.
Smart answer.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Tim has opened everyone's eyes to Big Punch Arena. And I think to anybody who hears about it and to hear what goes down is kind of like a strange thing because we're used to watching like, you just saw Gervonta Davis fight in an arena, but that's not what Big Punch is. This is a place where it's like a factory of fighting. Yeah. And so could you give us the whole rundown of like, how'd you hear about it? How did you find yourself fighting there? Where you made your pro debut there, right? So like, can you walk us through like the whole process of like, you're this guy, like when did you hear about it?
All right, so I was actually in Mexico for my teammates fighting as amateurs, and my dad talked to some people, or some people talked to him. He called, And then him and my coach Dewey Cooper. That's what happened, right? Coach Dewey had a fighter on the card. Yeah. Coach Dewey Cooper asked us, did I want to be on the card and to make my pro debut because I wanted to turn pro while I was still 17. And he asked my dad and told him about the card. One of the other fighters who was on the card got me him and coach got me a spot on there. And then I just trained. It was only a week on like a week's notice or so. So I went there back to Vegas from Dallas, lost weight, and then I went and fought.
What was your first reaction like when you got there and you saw the venue?
I was surprised. You know, I thought it was gonna be like a big. How I seen it on TV, it looked like a big arena with these big screens and stuff like that. And all this, I thought it was gonna be like a big crowd of people. There was a lot of people outside and stuff, but it was actually pretty like small. But it was nice though. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised.
Did they tell
You
you
know the
who
funny.
Oh, go on, Tim.
Go ahead, Angela.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna say,
Angela.
did they tell you who you were fighting, or did they just say we got a date, show up, and you'll find out when you get here?
Well, I think I learned about the guy the week while I was training. No, actually, I switched opponents 3 times, so kinda, yeah, like the second one. But I was ready for whoever. As long as I was in shape and on my A game, I knew I was going to win, whether I had to outbox a guy or whatever.
Well, it's funny you say that the opponent changed so many times because I was when Angela, when you and I were just talking over each other there. I was going to say I watch all of those shows up Big Punch on Facebook, and a lot of times I'll watch the weigh in the day before, and then the next day, the guy that's weighed in is not the same guy that's fighting the A side, which you don't see in the United States. But the reason why I'm saying that is you can show up to Big Punch and fight a guy that looks like he never fought before, but that wasn't the case in your pro debut. That guy could fight.
Yeah, he could. That's what they told me. They said a lot of people got turned down fighting a guy, and he was a good amateur. So yeah, he could fight, and I could fight too. I was just the better man that night, and I was more prepared. But yeah, definitely, a lot of guys that night they were fighting guys who they could just punch, and they just go down off the wind of the punch, But that guy, he was smiling the whole time. He was coming. He was throwing punches, swinging for the fences, So it was fun. I'm happy I got that experience in my first fight.
Do you think you learned stuff? Did you because I think, at least from my perspective watching fighting, you can tell when a guy still has their amateur style,
Yeah.
and they it just don't look like when Errol Spence in the ring. Did you have any of those moments where like you realize some of the amateur stuff you needed to change it up a little bit, or did you always have more of a pro style?
I learned that that fight actually, because I tried to clinch the dude and I couldn't, and it was like, man, this dude's slippery. He ain't got no shirt on and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, the coach, we've been working on how to clinch in a pro fight and just different stuff. It's kind of like you can do the stuff that you can't do it, that you couldn't do in the amateurs, and then stuff that you could do in the amateurs you can't do as a pro. So we still learning fight by fight in every camp. But I already been in the ring with a lot of good top guys and stuff like that. So it's not really much that I haven't seen as a fighter. I just got to learn different stuff for myself though. At like getting once I'm in the fight, like different stuff, different tricks and stuff like that. But yeah.
How did the guy's power feel? Did you like feel a difference? Like, oh, okay, this is what the pros feels like.
Not really, but the gloves, they feel a little different. Like I felt like I got skint by a punch a little bit. I was like, man, it felt like somebody like poked you, like you was going to start swelling or something. But the guy, he was young too, so he didn't really have like grown man strength or anything. But I'll get my chance to feel like a real strong puncher and stuff as I go. But
I think I had a friend who was an amateur, and he said one of the differences that he felt whenever they'd bring him in to spar pros was the physical strength of fighters. And is that something that you've realized too over the course of when you've been sparring with like pros, is like their ability to be strong on the inside and things like that?
Yes, certain guys. I'm a pretty strong guy myself, but certain guys have been pretty physically strong that I have sparred, and they hands are like real hard and solid, like with one punch, and they got different tricks that you might hop out in front of them for a few rounds, but they got some other tricks that'll catch back up with you later. You know, like a lot of guys, they punch behind the head, punch behind the ear, a lot of different stuff that I'm still learning about being a pro.
Sam, you said you wanted to turn pro when you're 17. I meant to ask you about that a couple of minutes ago. Tell me why that was.
Because I seen a lot of other guys that were young that was from my class, like as amateurs, that were pro, and I was like, man, I could beat these guys that they're beating way more impressively. That's what I was telling my dad. And then I wanted to make the USA team as a youth, but they kept postponing the tournament for months, and I just couldn't wait no longer. So I just had to take advantage of my youth and just turn pro now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I meant to ask you that a second ago. So this coming weekend, you're fighting back at Big Punch again.
Yes, sir.
God bless, one of my favorite venues. One day I'll beat a Big Punch myself. Did they tell you who you're fighting this weekend yet? Do you know?
Yes, but I forgot his name though. But I gotta go. I know he got 22 fights on Boxer.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a big step up in experience based off of your
Definitely.
last couple of fights.
Yeah, definitely.
And you are like confident though. You have no issue with that.
No, not at all, because I've been doing my part, and I've been in the ring with a lot of other top guys, so I know what level where I'm at.
Do you have any like sparring sessions where like you vividly remember learning a lot, or like having like those kind of moments where things click in the ring? Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of those experiences?
Yes, I learned a lot sparring uh Tony Harrison. I learned a lot. He knows how to pace real good, pick his shots. He's real accurate when he throws. And he know how to stay like right in between you and just land some good shots. I learned a lot sparring Maurice Hooker. I learned different tricks that a pro would do that's kind of dirty, but that they could get away with. Even though I could keep up with those guys, they got like a few other things that I haven't seen as amateurs. I haven't had to use, so I learned a lot sparring those two guys. And Sergey, I can't pronounce his last name, but he just fought.
Boychuk.
Yeah,
Boychuk.
Boychuk.
Yep.
Yeah, I spar him. He another guy who has a lot of like kind of dirty, not call him a dirty fighter or anything, but like pro tricks
Yeah, he got
that you
some
could
vet
get away
moves.
with as a pro, but not really as an amateur. But yeah, I learned a lot sparring those three guys. And
What did you do to those guys? Because they all have either had a loss or a draw recently. What did you do to them?
Oh
Yeah,
man.
geez.
I don't know,
Uh,
They're not in the
man.
ring.
This
They
is
don't
a
want to fight anymore.
6'3", 18-year-old just fighting at 154.
Yeah, man, those guys are all good. I was a little younger sparring them then, but that those guys are all good though. It was good work from everybody.
So when you saw Tony Harrison get a win in the first fight that he had with Jermell Charlo, did it shock you?
Yes, I thought Charlo won.
But having had the experience sparring guys, do you feel like some type of way about them afterwards? Like maybe you are more invested in seeing them do good since they bring you in for sparring, or do you just not even care?
Can you say that one more time?
Like after you spar a guy, do you feel like kind of like a camaraderie with them? Like you kind of want them to do good since.
Yes, definitely. I be wanting them to do good. And another guy I forgot to mention was I sparred Goodfella Perella, who just fought Tony Harrison, had a draw.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I had sparred him at Roy Jones Gym until I had seen his Instagram and I seen he was fighting Tony Harrison, and I had to go back in the pictures and look like, oh, I sparred him. Yeah, I learned a lot from him too. He a good fighter. Also, he was good work.
So who's been the hardest guy to hit for you that you've sparred?
Um, Hardest guy to hit.
Yeah.
I can't think. I'm not sure if it was any of those guys, but it's probably been some other good guys that I sparred in my past, like amateurs or something. But all those guys, they don't really mind getting hit, really.
uh, what is your training schedule like?
I wake up in the morning. I train early into probably almost the middle of the day. And then I go to school because I don't got to go to school till 11 o'clock. I go to school, chill for a few hours, then I head back to the gym at night. Or I'll go get out of school, chill for a few hours, go to the track, then go to the gym. When I'm in Vegas, I train early in the morning, chill, rest, rehydrate, take care of whatever I need to. And I'll come back, run, and then at night I get in the sauna and sweat and stuff like and check my weight.
So I didn't hear anything there about a social life. So is that like, when do you have fun?
All the time.
I know you have fun in the gym probably, but
Yeah, I have fun all the time. But when it's time to fight, I gotta be on it really. But I have fun. I'm out of town right now in Las Vegas, staying at a cool hotel and stuff like that. So I always have fun. But when it's time to fight, I can't afford to lose or have a bad performance or anything. So when it's time to fight, I gotta make sure I'm at my best to perform at my highest.
Tim,
Do you go to
yeah.
Sam? Do you go to Las Vegas for camp, or what brings you to Vegas?
For camp, I train with Coach Dewey Cooper out here.
Okay, yeah.
I've been knowing him for years since I was probably about 14 years old, 13 years old. So yeah, we come out here to train. I come out here by myself. Then my dad will come in a few days or a week or so. But yeah, and then we train here because it's close. We could just head straight to Mexico whenever it's time to weigh in.
So what's the plan for the year? How many times do you think you're gonna fight?
I know for sure I'm gonna fight at least 5, but probably more. I'm not sure, but I think I gotta. When is my next fight?
Saturday?
Yeah, yeah, August after. I'm sorry, after this fight, August and November for sure. I have a fight, but yeah, for sure. I probably have 5 fights this year.
All right, Tim. And is there anything else?
Yeah, I got just a couple more things I wanted to ask. So, Angela, you asked about social life. No, I think we can deduct that Sam, you must not be a gamer. Otherwise, maybe you would be more familiar with Discord. So, what do you do when you're not working out? What do you do?
I like to go. I like to go shopping. I like to go shopping a lot. Yeah, I like to go shopping, go out of town, go different places. Nice, go out to eat. You know, I'm not really a gamer. My brother, he heavy on games, but I like to go shopping and go different places though. That's my main fun thing. Buying new clothes. I like clothes a lot, shoes, stuff like that.
Hype beast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so we're gonna have all of your links to your social media in the show notes for the podcast. So if anyone wants to check out, Sam's got some good videos on YouTube, and we have his YouTube profile here as well as his BoxRec and his Twitter, and then some Instagrams. And I wanted to ask you, you've got a couple Instagrams, and we've got the links here. But tell us about New Money Camp and Young Kings Boxing. Tell us what that's all about.
Okay, so New Money Camp is it's something that me and a close friend of mine who passed away recently started. But so it's just a group of young amateur boxers from across the nation. That's what it started off as. That was all ranked, winning tournaments and stuff like that, like a travel team. But now we really starting to lean in towards, we want it to be like a promotional company, and we got a moving company and things like that. So New Money Camp is just my team really, and a lot of other great fighters team, like my cousins from St. Louis and different guys like Tavarian Anderson from Louisiana, who's a international medalist. Jake, my friend Jake Yasasi, who's making his professional debut July 3rd, 30th, and just different guys like that. But we trying to. It's just us though. It's just the group of us. So that's our name, New Money Camp. Young Kings Boxing was the name of me and my brother's boxing team, but that was the page for it. But now it's going to be different things, like a non-for-profit and stuff like that. But we own that name though, Young Kings Boxing. Me and my brother do, and yeah, that's the account from my dad though.
Yeah, I got you. And
Yeah.
I also have a link in here to the story from the Dallas Morning News that you just mentioned, that was your friend, and I'm sorry for your loss, Cam Collier, right?
Yes, thank you.
That y'all started New Money Camp. It sounds, from what I read about Cam, he was a hell of a young man, and really had his head on straight, was doing a lot of good things in his young life already. So I'm sorry that.
Definitely. He wasn't like a bad guy or anything like that. It was just a tragic event that happened. He was a boxer. He was a vet. He was a lot of good things. His family loved him. We loved him. A lot of people did. We was thinking even about him turning pro, or him because he had came to my house the day before he passed. So we just used to be entertaining that. But he was he was a real good boxer, and he was even better person.
That's what I was just gonna say. It sounds like he was even better a person from what I read
Yeah.
about him. So I'm sorry about that, but we can keep pumping New Money Camp then on in memory of Cam, right? So,
Definitely.
absolutely. Angelo, anything I forgot that you want to ask?
I just wanted to
Sam?
ask just a little quick question. You're 18.
Mhm.
What is the preferred social media thing? Looks like Instagram. Is that you don't use Twitter?
Yeah, I do use Twitter. Samuel Arnold II is my Twitter. Samuel Arnold II is my main Instagram. The other Instagram, that Samuel Arnold LLL page, that's my backup page, just in case anything happened or anything like that.
Just in case you get banned or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I gotta keep that. Yeah.
I don't know about for Tim. I don't know about you. Actually, Tim, I think you use Facebook too, but I only use Twitter. I can't really get down with Instagram. So anyway, Sam, thank you so much for coming on. We will be looking out for your fight this weekend. We wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to see the growth of what essentially said like an AAU team. I mean, that is something that we don't have in boxing that we obviously have in a lot of other amateur sports.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thank you guys for having me too.
Yeah, no problem. This was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
no, thank you, Sam.
Thank you for giving us your stories and all that, and adding to the legend of Big Punch Arena here on the podcast.
Definitely, thank you guys.
All right, man.
Good luck on Saturday. We'll be watching. Thanks a lot, Sam. Take care, man.
All right, you too.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, so that was our interview with Sam Arnold. And I think that almost wraps us up this week, Tim, except Tim has an announcement. Tim, what do you have for us?
Well, thank you if you've listened all the way here through to the end. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to mention, you may have seen on social media, and I mentioned it earlier in our show, but I wanted to mention here on the next couple of podcasts that I'm going to launch a Patreon community. There's been some things that have happened around social media, recently, when I think about building our club boxing community that we are all a part of here as listeners to the show, and followers of mine on Twitter, and people in the Discord chat and things of that nature. So I'm going to create a Patreon community, and the good news is that if you follow me on social media and like what's going on Twitter, and you enjoy our podcast that we're doing right now that you're listening to, none of that will change. I'll still keep those avenues available for you, as well as keep tweeting live boxing content, but going to open up a community on Patreon that you can donate to on a monthly basis if you want to join. We'll have additional podcast content there, ability to vote and have access to club knockouts of the month, club fights of the month. We're going to have exclusive Patreon posts and videos, as well as, even cooler, some live viewing parties. So, as an example, if you wanted to get together and watch Sam's fight here coming Saturday, Big Punch Arena, we could have a community where we watch that together. You can hear my analysis and commentary on the fight. And then even above that, potentially one-on-one opportunities for us to get together on Zoom calls, and I could be your personal concierge to fight week. Or we could talk about who I think is going to win that 5th undercard bout in Lodz, Poland that you are so interested in. So a whole new level here. If you liked what you've been seeing out of Tim Boxeo, me, at this point, I think you're really going to love me taking it to a whole nother level in Patreon, and that'll kick off here in a couple of weeks. And if you'd prefer not to, we can stay cool and keep rolling the way we're rolling. It's all good for me either way.
What I think is going to happen is people are going to ask you, like, Tim, how about we rewatch Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez 3? And you'll be like, wait a second.
And score it, right? Yeah,
Yeah. Tim, why don't you score Paul Williams versus Sergio Martinez 1?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be the dancing bear, right? Like, flip me a $5 coin and I got to score Pacquiao Marquez 3 or something. Then you can all laugh at me.
By the way, it was 7-5 for Marquez.
Oh, whatever, yeah.
I don't know if that's you saying whatever, like you disagree, or you saying whatever, like you don't care.
The latter. Yeah, I don't really care.
Shout out to Boxing Scene for posting the picture of the knockout of Morel Cazares, where Cazares' back is like a few inches from hitting the canvas. It was pretty funny of a picture. I don't know why. I just looked at my Twitter and that was what was there. But I'm looking forward to the content. There will be interviews. There will be... Did you say that there's going to be live watch-alongs?
There is.
I think Q&As, you are going to have... I mean, I like your community. I like what you're building over there. And I'm speaking as somebody who has a very large one who's spent a lot of time building up community. I like the direction that yours is going in. I think you have some really smart people in there that are actually like discussing boxing and really care about boxing on this level. So I definitely encourage you guys, check it out. Anything else we should say, Tim?
So we've got great response from the podcast. So thanks everybody that's listening. Thanks everyone that's rated. We've got, I think, 17 or 18 ratings on the podcast so far. So if you like the podcast, you can help us out by going over to Apple and rating the podcast. And if you could rate it as a 5, that would be great. That's probably the best thing you can do for us, and we really appreciate it. So thanks for listening.
It took over a year for us to get that many reviews on our podcast. So I just want to say you're doing pretty good.
Wow. Thanks, man. I appreciate your help.
All right. Well, that's it for us this weekend. We will be back next week. We'll be recapping Sam Arnold's fight at Big Punch, in addition to, I'm sure, I don't know, some other dudes getting wheelbarrowed out of the ring. Tim, always great to talk to you. And we will be back next week.